Wisp Sports Radio, the voice of women in sport.
This is Season 1, Episode 15 of Hockey Talk on Wisp Sports. I'm Shannon Miller, and at Wisp Sports, we believe women in sport deserve equal coverage. I'm delighted to announce my sponsor, Yugo. Yugo Wear is a company started by two women who invented a great product that is valuable to everyone. Let's hear more about Yugo.
Have you ever thought you had the best protection for your phone only to find it failed? Yugo to the rescue, the only waterproof life jacket for your phone using a dry suit zipper closure. Your phone has full functionality while inside, and best of all, Yugo floats. Use promo code HockeyTalk and check us out at yugowear.com. That is UGOWEAR.com.
In today's episode, I will talk about leadership, lessons learned from Mother Nature, and navigating the coaching world. My guest this week is Coach Carol Hutchins, a very successful head coach at the University of Michigan softball program, the winningest coach in NCAA softball history, a pioneer and activist with Title IX. Today's sidebar will be about a federal law, Title IX. And this week's drill of the week will be a half-ice competitive game called 3v3 Safe House. And it will be posted on my Facebook page at Coach Shannon Miller on Thursday. Thank you for joining me. I'm honored to have my own hockey podcast show on Wisp Sports and to be part of the most popular and influential podcast organization for women in sports globally. Today's podcast is titled Authentic Leadership. Here's my definition of charismatic leader. Charismatic leader, charismatic leadership. Someone who leads with unwavering vision, passion, confidence, energy, belief, commitment, emotion, perseverance, and creativity. When talking to coaches, I always encourage creativity, thinking outside the box, and having the courage to try new things. I want to continue to encourage coaches to try things on for size, like you do with clothes or shoes. Just like clothes or shoes, you can take it off if you don't like it. Put it down. Try something else on. Keep what works for you, keep what works for the team, and discard the rest. Learn as you go. Let your leadership skills evolve while you stay true to who you are. You will be tested, criticized, and critiqued. Expect it. Navigate successfully through it. As a leader, the most attractive you can be is authentic. When you're authentic, some relationships will end. Some will get better, and new ones will appear. Leadership makes a difference. What we do matters. Being a leader sometimes means walking around with a bullseye on your chest. The more successful you are, the more shots you will take. A leader is constantly coming into contact with strong personalities, practices, values, and viewpoints that clash with their own. We must have thick skin, or grow to have thick skin, and it requires a lot of patience. Now, leadership is exercised in the midst of lightning, thunder, crosswinds, headwinds. And while the airplane gets tossed around the sky and the passengers scream in terror, and while your heart is pounding out the Macarena, as the leader, you must keep your cool, keep your head about you, and show them there's nothing to worry about. If you coach long enough, you will experience amazing highs and painful lows. Keep your head about you, keep a healthy perspective, and stay the course. Coaches, remember that your self-esteem and self-identity should not be tied up in wins and losses. Who you are is who you are. It's not tied to winning and losing. If you're coaching and going through turbulent times, maybe on a long losing streak, it's likely that you've laid awake at nights, struggling with how to solve the problems and how to turn things around for your team. If you wake up in the morning and you still don't have the answer, when you walk through the door, your staff and players need to see confidence. They need to feel energy from you and believe you have found a way or that you are close to finding a way. Confidence is contagious, and so is a lack of confidence. Head coaches lead the way. Now, we can learn a lot about leadership and team from Mother Nature. For example, the Canadian geese. They fly as a flock in a V formation. Every 20 minutes or so, they rotate the leadership position. Each one takes a turn to lead. They all know the lead position is the toughest spot to be in, and that no one bird should bear this responsibility for the flock alone. What is true of Canadian geese is true of people. The burdens of the flock and the team must be shared, or the leader will burn out and fall from the sky. As a head coach, I make it a practice of stepping back to let others lead, assistant coaches and players. I've encouraged small group meetings with the assistant coaches, as well as full team meetings with all the players and only the assistant coaches present. With no head coach present, that's in hopes that players will be more relaxed, creating a more open dialogue with everyone. In years when my teams have had many good leaders within the team, the coaches identify a leadership group called the Six-Pack. This group of 6 leaders from within the team create a strong player leadership group, each with a unique skill set, in hopes that they can handle the many different situations that arise in the team that require people to step up and lead. This 6-pack group should always be able to have their finger on the pulse of the team. With so many of them, finger on the pulse is important and should be able to be done. They should be able to handle private conversations when needed, take care of small problems so they don't get bigger, and be a strong bridge between all of the players and all of the staff. Spreading out the workload of leadership, in theory, should create an environment where everyone is heard, problems are addressed, and a strong team culture builds over time. My intention with this group is for us to link arms, link minds, create an open dialogue, provide support for all, and to magnify each other's efforts and abilities. Like everything else, people must buy in and step up to accept this responsibility, or it won't work. And it won't occur overnight. Given enough time, open communication should occur, which will lead to early problem solving, then trust, and then the creation of a cohesive group. This process cannot be rushed. It must be respected and given time to work. The old leadership paradigm, they had buffalo and the herd. The head buffalo plans, organizes, commands, and controls. The other buffalo are loyal followers of one leader. The head buffalo is the center of power. The new leadership paradigm, it's the flock of geese, shared leadership. Sidebar. Title IX is a federal law. Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 prohibits sex discrimination in education programs that receive federal funds. While the law applies to all aspects of educational opportunities, it is probably best known for its application to sports. In real simple terms, Title IX requires that schools, 1, provide male and female students with equal opportunities to play sports, and 2, give male and female athletes their fair share of athletic scholarship dollars, and 3, provide equal benefits and services, such as facilities, coaching, publicity, to male and female athletes overall. My guest is Coach Carol Hutchins. In her 35th season at the helm of the University of Michigan softball program, Coach Hutchins is the winningest coach in NCAA softball history. She has guided the Wolverines to an NCAA national championship title, 20 Big Ten conference titles, 26 appearances in the NCAA tournament, and solidified Michigan among the top softball programs in the country. Coach Hutch was inducted into the National Fast Pitch Coaches Association Hall of Fame in 2006 and currently enters her 35th season with a record of 1,571 wins, 504 losses, 5 ties, more wins than any other coach in any division in NCAA softball history. Coach, I'm sure we have a lot in common, but one thing I read really caught my eye. You were a pioneer as a student athlete and sued the University of Michigan State back in 1978 for Title IX inequities. Ironically, 40 years later, I was just recently in federal court suing the University of Minnesota for sex discrimination and Title IX inequities. Rosa Parks, a role model for all of us, once said, "You must never be fearful of what you are doing if it is right." Coach Hutch, tell us about that specific situation and your experience with Title IX since then.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all. It's my honor. And as I told you when I first talked to you on the phone, I've been following you for years and admire that you're now one of those pioneers as well. I was a college student. I went to Michigan State University, which usually throws people for a loop. And back in those days, I come from the era when I went to high school in the 70s, and of course, Title IX passed in 1972. So I actually never played high school softball. We didn't have it. We didn't have high school sports that were varsity for the girls. Just the boys played sports, and the girls were cheerleaders, which I admit to being a cheerleader as well. But we did have what was called girls' play days, GAA, and club, kind of like club competitions. And I did play basketball as well. In my senior year, which was 1975, Title IX was starting to have some effects on the landscape. And Title IX is an educational amendment. There's not one word in that 37-word document that has the word sport, or that women must have equal access, but it just talks about not discriminating in federally funded arenas. And it really is probably one of the biggest social changes of this past decade. So I did get to play high school basketball. My senior year, we were varsity. We had a real schedule. We had buses. We even had cheerleaders. And it was a dream come true to get to really be a varsity athlete like my brothers got to do. And I went on to Michigan State. And the thing is, back in those days, they were adding sports for women. They recognized that they had to, but it was a really reluctant, if that's a good word, atmosphere. Athletic directors around the country were fighting Title IX. And in fact, the athletic director here at Michigan back then, the famous Don Canham, lobbied Congress and said that if we allow Title IX to go through as is and women have equal opportunity, it will ruin college football. And that was back in the late 70s. So my group at Michigan State, I happened to be a senior by my senior year in 1979. And we were treated very differently. I mean, we didn't have scholarships. We didn't have charter anything. So our coaches in the middle of winter would drive us in cars. So we would take a caravan of 4 station wagons and drive down to Purdue or drive down to Indiana to play basketball games and drive back the same evening. We had hotels, but we would sleep 4 to a room. We had per diem, but we ate at McDonald's more than any person should. And by my senior year, we had a couple of actually former players. And Kathy DeBoer, who has gone on, she was a volleyball/basketball player. She's now president of the WVCA, the Women's Volleyball Coaches Association, and is a longtime activist, as well as another former player, Cookie Mankowski. They had been studying Title IX, and they came to me because I happened to be the captain of the basketball team and said, this is what we're thinking. And we drove down to, of all places, Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is an hour away from Lansing, and met with Gene King, who was the first lawyer to take on Title IX cases. And the first case ever happened to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan, when a women's tennis player didn't have a team to play on. So she tried to play on the boys' tennis team at Huron High School. And Gene King won that case. Gene King's one of the most prolific Title IX lawyers out there. And we took on Michigan State University and won. And we didn't only win. We had to go to federal court, myself and a few of my teammates. And the judge listened to us. And within an hour of the case, he just walked in with his gavel, slam dunk, and did a injunction against Michigan State University. And they had to begin treating the women's basketball equal to the men's basketball. We immediately had improved conditions. We had charter buses. We slept 2 to a room. We started having enough money to have actually 3 good meals a day, as opposed to hopefully 1 good meal a day. And cases like that around the landscape kept popping up. And anybody who ever really took on the battle would win, because the discrepancy in men's and women's athletic was so severe back then. Anybody would win. And the penalty, which people don't realize, the penalty for not complying with Title IX, when you're a federally funded institution, the penalty is you lose your federal funding. So no university can afford to do that. No public university can allow for that to happen. But what's interesting is, to this day, no university has ever lost their federal federally funded. They've never lost that not because there's so much compliance going on, but because so few people have really taken it on. It's a very difficult thing to do. You are put through a lot of, victim shaming, a lot of blaming, and so many coaches throughout the history of women's athletics from Title IX on. I can name a number of people who ended up losing their careers. And not because they sued for Title IX, because retaliation, too, is illegal. But all of a sudden, interestingly enough, somebody wasn't winning enough. Somebody maybe complained against them. And there were a lot of cases where, coaches were victimized over this.
Well, it's been a federal law since 1972, but still to this day, I am contacted by coaches, female coaches, that are fearful in their programs to this day to bring issues forward. And they reach out to me because of the federal lawsuit that I just won. And I am suing at the state level as well with the basketball coach and the softball coach. And so coaches are reaching out to us. But it's kind of scary to me that we're now 2019 and these young women that are coaching are fearful, and it's a federal law. What are your thoughts on that?
I can tell you that what's most interesting is how few people really understand the law. And advocacy groups, whether it's in our coaches association, but the first thing people need to do is educate themselves. People contact me often, largely because I'm just one of the older coaches in the softball profession, been around a while, and they know I have some experience with it. And understanding what the law entails, and it does often mean talking to a lawyer. Usually your coaching associations have a lawyer on retainer that you can find out if there really are issues. Are these truly issues? That's the first thing, is for you to understand yourself what's proper and what isn't. And I helped mentor a young coach just a couple years ago who coached at a small community or a small school in Texas. I think it was D2. And their baseball team had built a Taj Mahal, and they literally had snakes in their locker room because their locker room was kind of like a trailer. They had weeds growing all over. They had scorpions. And the discrepancy was, I saw the pictures. So it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that this isn't right. And usually what's right and what's wrong is usually you're on good task. But young people are fearful because they don't understand. And when somebody really takes a look and says, this is wrong, it's wrong that we're going to treat a certain segment of athletics better than another segment. Our job as athletic programs is to provide all student athletes with access and opportunity to be successful, both in their academics and in their athletics. And some of those aren't totally defined, but you can tell, you can figure it out by just looking around the landscape when things are equal or unequal. But to go to somebody that can really guide you in that is really, I think, an important step, because knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. And I've never met a coach who isn't competitive and wants to do the best they can for their programs. And this sometimes is part of it. Part of it is ensuring that you have to sometimes be a strong voice, because I always say if they were going to do what was right, they would have done it back in the 70s, and people like myself wouldn't have had to beg, borrow, and steal to get a chance to play a sport on campus or at the high school level. People don't always do what's right. They do what they think is best, whether it's making money for the university and so forth.
Yeah, I agree. If they were going to do what's right, they would have done it by now. It started in 1972, and we're in 2019. So let's segue into more personal coaching philosophies. So when I went to the University of Minnesota Duluth, they just had a club women's hockey team, and we built the women's ice hockey program from scratch, the Division I program. And we created a foundation of open, honest, and accepting. And we built the program on this foundation, and we always returned to that when we were having difficulties as a team over the years. That's where we would go back to and start over and talk as a team. And it gave us ground to stand on, and it gave us a platform to work from. What is the foundation that you built for your program and that you continue to build on?
Well, I came to Michigan, and obviously I was a Spartan. And when I came to Michigan, and I came in 1982, I was actually the assistant coach. And I became the head coach just a few years later, 2 years to be exact. And I was here at the same time, a really famous football coach by the name of Bo Schembechler was running our football program. And I can tell you that I learned a lot about Michigan. And my philosophy has been from the day I've stepped in the door is this is about Michigan. And every one of us, whether I'm a coach, whether I'm a trainer, whether I'm the manager, and most importantly, whether I'm a student athlete, you are one of 20 women. This year we have 21. No, this year we have 20. Some years we have 21 women in the world to wear the Block M and play softball. It is the greatest privilege of your life. And it's something that you must hold yourself to the highest standard. And so our kids and our philosophy over the years has been, this isn't about you. This is about Michigan. And every decision we make, every action you take, how does it affect University of Michigan softball? You're just one small piece of the puzzle. And anybody who thinks that you're bigger than that, they're in the wrong program. Because when you go to play softball at Michigan, everything we do is going to be to make the University of Michigan great. And it's a privilege and an honor. And whether it's keeping our locker room spotless, whether it's wearing your uniform properly, whether it's holding yourself to the highest standard on Saturday night, you have an opportunity to do something that only 20 other people in the world get to do. And you have to treat it as such. And our kids learn to cherish the Block M and understand that they represent something way bigger than themselves. That has been our Keystone Foundation.
I like it. Thank you. So, Coach Hutch, share with us your coaching style, your belief in discipline, excellence, expectations, accountability.
Well, yeah. I don't know if I could ever personally describe my style because people have asked me that before. I don't have a style. I definitely coach within my personality. I think, how I am is how I am on the field is how I am off the field. I've certainly been described as very intense. And I always think that's funny because what head coach isn't? How could you be a head coach and not be intense?
Exactly.
I play every pitch of the game. I'm exhausted every game because I've pitched every pitch and played every pitch. But ultimately, it kind of goes back to my Keystone philosophy. I'm here to serve University of Michigan and the University of Michigan softball program. I'm here to make us as great as we can. I'm here to recruit the best players, the right players, kids that fit what Michigan is about, because we want kids who are driven to be great. I want kids who are driven to be great academically. When you come to Michigan, I don't believe in class checking and chasing kids around campus, although not that I've never done it, but you came here to get your degree. You have the greatest opportunity in the world to get one of the best degrees in the world. And people who take that for granted or who don't understand, they understand it or they don't last. You learn to understand it because that's what helps make everybody tick. That's what makes us go, is people who understand that this is a privilege and an opportunity, and you have to take care of that. It's not your entitled right. It's a privilege and opportunity, and therefore you can lose it. So I really base my philosophy around the fact that you get to wear the Block M, but you don't just get to wear it. You have the privilege to wear it, but you're going to wear it right, and you're going to wear it under my terms. So that does come with discipline, and discipline is simply putting off, the things you want to do versus the things you need to do. It's taking care of business. It's staying on task, and you're accountable to the program. You're accountable to everybody in the program. You're accountable to your teammates. You're accountable to the University of Michigan, the president. You're accountable to the fact you get to represent Michigan. So you have to represent it under the terms we present. And that has become, as I'm sure we'll talk about, a little more difficult in today's age of individual. But there's no individual. This is a team sport, and you get a chance you're just a part of the team. So I don't know if that's my style, but that's what I believe in, and that's what makes us, I think is what sets us apart at times, is we've been able to create that culture and environment in today's world.
Yeah. And, when I was coaching, I was trying to teach earn the right, whether it's earn the right to wear the jersey, earn the right to actually get to play during the game, earn the right to win, earn the right to have a day off or 2 days off in a row. Everything was about earn the right. As coaches, we have to play to win. It is tough to keep everybody happy when not everybody's playing. Let's talk about that. Softball carries 21. You're playing 9 or 10 kids. How do you handle that?
Well, it's interesting. We had a meeting yesterday, and I talked with my captains afterwards. I said, this is the thing. This isn't about being happy. I said, the greatest of warriors don't go into battle happy. We're in a battle every day. We're in boot camp during practice, and we're going into battle every game. And so I don't think happy is the right word. But there's no question it starts in the recruiting process. And we are as straightforward as we can be. I don't ever promise kids anything that I don't personally control. And I don't personally control if they're going to play, because they control if they're going to play. I promise them opportunity. I promise them that they'll get better only if they partake in that endeavor. They aren't going to get better if they come here and wait for me to get them better. And they have to learn how to own that. They have to learn how to be an invested athlete. Some of that's a learning curve. That's what we're supposed to be teaching. And I recognize that kids aren't necessarily along the way. We recruit a lot of the top kids. And so those kids have never been challenged at the level that we challenge them. And I think the biggest thing is they've never faced the adversity of playing with everybody who's the same level as them. So they've never failed. They've never been knocked down, and they don't necessarily know how to get back up. So it's part of our teaching process is putting them in those situations and teaching them that failure is actually a huge part of our sport. And it isn't whether you fail, it's whether you get back up, because failures are only people who don't get back up. But I think a lot of it is in your ability to connect with them, because they have to know you love them, and they have to know that they have to trust you. And creating trust, I think the millennials are known for being a group that they're not the most trusting. They have to understand all the information first. We've tried to get a little better at helping them, giving them more information maybe than we did in the past, so that they could learn to trust. They tend to be a little skeptical. And so, in my style, I've tried to understand that, not judge them, but simply we need to make sure they understand why we do what we do before they do it. And then they're more likely to trust it and to buy into it. It's a challenging, though. I think I've been coaching now. I've been at Michigan. This is my 35th year, and it's moving into my 40th year of being a coach. And I don't think coaching's ever been more challenging.
Yeah, and developing trust takes time. I agree with you 100% about they need to know why they're doing this before they do it, which is very different than male sports. But it takes time to establish those relationships and to build trust. And that's one of the things the young coaches that are contacting me saying they're having trouble with right now is these players are causing them problems right at the beginning of the season, coming out of the gate, because they're not dressed or they're not playing. And they haven't established that trust yet, but they're definitely have good intentions and they're working on it. But I do agree with you. You've got to explain a lot more up front before you can get them to do it. Now, I happen to consider leadership inside the team extremely important. When we've won big NCAA championships that we won at UMD, we always had strong leadership inside the locker room. What does the importance of leadership inside the team mean to you?
Well, there's no question. My best teams have been player-driven. They're the ones who drive the bus. And I say that about my 2005 team all the time. All I did was show up and turn the lights on. They drove the bus. And it was some key people in the clubhouse. You need to have, your best players need to be your leaders, to quote famous Pat Summitt. But, and I think there's a lot of truth to that. And so I believe in trying to establish my personal connection with the kids who I think need to be our leaders. And I think you have to help mentor them. Leading is not necessarily a natural skill set. It's a skill set that can be developed. But I think you have to be hands-on in that. I've certainly tried to spend time in one-on-one situations. I try to meet with my captains regularly and discuss instances that have come up that I'm going to let them handle, but I try to mentor how they handle it and give them options I think would be good for them to choose from. I think it's important that you recognize that if you're driving the bus, you can only drive it so far. You can make a good team better, but a great team is going to be ultimately led by the leaders within who the kids will follow, who the kids will trust, who the kids can look up to. And that leader has to do the right thing, whether it's on the field or off the field. Your leadership has to do the right thing. They don't have to be perfect. I mean, we coach college kids. College kids, they're college kids. But they have to ultimately be about the right things, because otherwise their credibility won't carry over in the biggest games of the year. It's not going to carry over when we need it most, when they're ultimately challenged.
Exactly. There you have it, the importance of leadership inside the team. I get a lot of coaches asking about that. So now, Coach Hutch, strong, passionate women who coach with intensity, energy, and focus often get called angry or mean, while men are referred to as confident, passionate, and strong. Why is that?
Yeah, because there's still a huge elephant in the room, the huge elephant in society, and it's called gender bias. And I think it's really important that women who are in the positions that you and I have been in as leaders within our sport, I'm a leader here at Michigan, that we fully understand the consequences that go with gender bias. And it's really as simple as a conversation I had with one of my student athletes in recent years. To make a long story short, she went on to tell me how men are more logical than women. And I said, really? She goes, oh, it's a fact. I said, I've never seen that study, but if you could have it on my desk tomorrow, I'd like to read it. And then she went on, well, and I said, let me tell you a story. And I went on to talk about how when we're in a big game, we're in any game, and the umpire makes a bad call, and I get in his face, and I throw my clipboard, and I get all, and people are like, oh, Hutch, she's little this, she's crazy. Jim Harbaugh's in a game, the ref makes a bad call, he throws his headset, he gets mad, he's visibly upset, and everybody says he's passionate, he's intense.
Exactly.
And I said to my student athlete, do you see that? And you could just see the light bulb go on. And I think part of our job is to recognize it ourselves, because I do believe that women need to support women. Women need to understand that being strong isn't just being, a bitch. Being strong isn't being mean. We're here to be leaders, and we're passionate about what we do. And the same qualities that make a male a great coach are the same qualities that make a female a great coach. And we are all, gender bias is simply having different standards. The standards that go with being female in today's world still are being nurturing, being kind, being pretty. I've never seen a male coach be talked about because of how he dressed or how pretty he wasn't. But I've heard it many times about female coaches. And we're still not there as a society. And it's important that the women, we're the first ones that need to understand it, because we're the first ones we're the first line of defense. In fact, we're the first lines of offense, because we're the ones that not only need to identify it, but I feel it's important as the coach of my team to help my young women understand it, because they're a year, 2 years, 3 years away from being out in the real world, where they don't have the bubble of college, where the college world is not like the real world. Our kids here are treated very much the same as the male athletes. And that's not true everywhere, but at Michigan, it's very true. And they're about to go out into the world where that world is not so equal and kind. So I feel It's our job to understand it. And it's our job to teach it. Just like I teach throwing and hitting, I teach equity. I teach the history of Title IX. And I am trying to teach my kids a little better about what gender bias really looks like. Because many of them don't realize it, but they themselves are gender biased. Women themselves can be gender biased.
Oh, absolutely.
That's our first obstacle to improve on in our world. Don't get me wrong. It still exists. It still exists. There's no question. But I feel like we've made some, from the time I was in college 40 years ago, the strides have been ginormous. But a lot of people have talked about Title IX is we're fine, everything's good. Women have sports, so we can drop it. And that would be like taking down all the speed limit signs, and saying go, but because you'll go the right speed limit. And I got news for you. People be going 80 all over the place if we let that happen. There's a reason we have speed limit signs. There's a reason we have laws, and we need to maintain the law because we're still a couple generations away from evolving into really where it belongs, which is, full equality. We're a few generations away.
Yes, we truly are. There's a lot of work to be done, and great analogy. So, Coach Hutch, there are a lot of female coaches struggling in the male-dominated domain of coaching. What can you say to help these women better navigate the coaching world?
Well, I think more than anything, you have to stay in your tunnel. I know our football coach has a sign in his office that says, "Just coach the team." There are points in time where you have just got to be focused on your program, your student athletes, period, because that's where you make the greatest impact, and that's where you get the most fulfillment. And I don't think you should underestimate how important your own fulfillment is to keeping you going, because I don't think anybody lasts as long in the profession as I've had the opportunity to do without really enjoying what I do ultimately. Good fights along the way. And where can you make a difference? Focus on what can I do to make a difference? And I think not take on everything at once. You can try to take on everything at once and you can let it beat you down. And I've seen a number of women over many years just kind of become beaten down because sometimes you got to take on these big fights in small increments. And you really, if I could give one piece of advice, it would be make sure you have a support network. We look at each other as competitors, and I compete with, my colleagues in the Big Ten. And of course we compete every time we walk on the field. But in my opinion is we're only competing on the field, because when we walk off the field, we're all in this together. As female coaches, we are all in this together, and the ability to network, some of the associations, I know you've been involved. I've become a little involved in We Coach, which was formerly the Alliance of Women Coaches, but we're all in this together. And you need to rely on your network, because that can really help you get through the ups and downs that go with this in general.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I would talk about a lot, language I would use for myself and my assistant coaches, stay in our lane, stay in our lane. And so when we'd be being verbally attacked by male coaches simply because we won, and we'd have an all-female coaching staff, or they would spit at us, I would just say, you guys, we just need to stay in our lane as much as we possibly can and encourage those male coaches to stay in their lane. So often, many times, very politely, I've said to male coaches, hey, just stay in your lane. I'm staying in my lane, coaching my team. You need to stay in yours. And that was one of the efforts that I made to solve those problems. But having that support group, I think, is also really important as well. And I agree with you. We are only competing when you step out on the field or take the ice. Other than that, we should really be strong women supporting each other.
Yeah, you can't say enough for that.
Yeah, I mean, and in some cases it's lacking, in some cases it's there, but it's that camaraderie needs to continue to grow. And people like yourself and myself, who are a little bit older, experienced, need to continue leading the way. That's on us. So, Coach, we live in a culture of selfism, a culture that puts tremendous emphasis on self and self-display. How do you handle that with your athletes and within your team?
Well, again, the pitcher is nothing if she doesn't have a catcher and she doesn't have somebody catch the ball when they do hit it. We talk just a lot about and everything that they do is part of Michigan. You're just a part of it. We really have to create the we environment, because going into it, they've spent their entire softball career showcasing their personal skills, their personal talent, their personal success. And then they have to really learn. And I believe, strongly that you can't expect overnight they walk in the door and understand that we are now only care about the team and the team's success. And if the only part you have is to be a pinch runner today, I tell them, you go in that game and your goal is to score. Find a way to score a run. And games come down to one run. Games come down all the time to 1 point. it's a teaching process, and it is a process. But that's the message that we hammer, and we certainly reward those who display being a great teammate and being a great member of the team and embracing their role. And I think it's important to become clear in what roles are, and it's interesting to me, kids will come in and that I don't understand my role, and I can be absolutely dumbfounded by the fact that to me their role has become very clear throughout the year. But what it is they just need you to say it, and they don't come in and ask until they're ready to hear it. But the role of every kid in that dugout is everybody is valid and everybody is valuable. And it may not be the way you want it to go, but I mean, I've coached now, I've got several hundred alumni who come back, many of them I have a CEO of major multinational corporations. We have doctors, lawyers, and they come back and they talk about all the lessons they learned from being in the program. And kids who came and thought they were going to take the world by the tail and be an All-American who never started in 4 years or never played. And these are kids who we've been fortunate haven't chosen just to leave the program, but they find a way to contribute. Because if you're in that dugout, you have to be contributing. You don't get to come in on your terms. Things don't go your way. We simply say, if you don't like it, then you need to leave. And empower them that it's a choice that they make. But if you choose to stay, these are the terms that you stay under. And again, is that getting more difficult? Yep. Parents call athletic directors. Athletic directors don't totally understand. Administrations, many of them didn't coach. They don't really understand why people aren't just happy to be there. It takes its toll. It's difficult. It's challenging. And it's ongoing. So it's important that you are clear in your values and goals going into your season, going into your program. These are my values. These are what I think we need to accomplish with our kids. And here I'm all about, they need to understand they are the luckiest 20 people in the world to get to walk in this building every day and wear the black M.
Yes. And that's so important, that approach. And it works when you have an administration that supports you and supports that approach. And that's the best way to be successful right there. As a successful female coach and an openly gay coach, I've had everything thrown at me, absolutely everything. I'm sure you've had some difficult times that you've had to overcome. Can you share one or more of those times in hopes to help another female coach overcome their challenges?
I look back after every season, and we've had only one season where we won the last game. And in 2015, we lost the last game, but we were national runner-up. And those were two of our, obviously, most successful seasons. And we've had a lot of really successful seasons. But along every season, there's what I look back on, the blips that occur. Whether it's kids who act out and we have to discipline, whether it's, whether I can look back and say the most challenging moments are moments that when I look back upon, I wish I would have reacted less and understand along the way, this is going to be a bump in the road. It's not a road that just caved in and crashed into a wall. Things seem so large. They seem so huge at the moment, regardless of what the adversity is that's going on. And when I look back on a season, once I've done with the season, once I've had time to chill and play golf and go to the lake, and I look back and think, wow, I made a really big deal out of something that now I would look back on and say, this too will pass. This will pass. And understand that the bumps in the road, it's our job to navigate them at the time and to keep us on course for what we're trying to accomplish, which all of us are trying to win championships, make the final 8. I mean, we're all on mission to do those things. And the best thing we can look at is, am I my best self? Because I talk to my kids about just be your best self. Doesn't mean you have to be better than Susie. Just be your best. But when I look back, I always realize in times that I wish I could do over, I wasn't my best self. And I think those are the lessons I learn. Unfortunately, I must not learn them because I go through them every year. But that's really, without looking at specifics that have happened, every year there's things that just seem to be the end of the world, the end of the season, when in reality, it's just the bump in the road. You know what? Stop a minute, change your tire, and keep going.
Yes, and we're all trying to be our best selves. Every head coach, every assistant coach, and every player. We all make mistakes, and we all reflect, sometimes daily, sometimes weekly, and certainly, like you said, once we've had a chance to recharge and get some rest after the season. And we always look back, and there's always a long list of mistakes that we've made, and we have to be patient with each other, allow ourselves to make mistakes, allow others to make mistakes, and just stick together, navigate through them as a team.
Well, it's been important in my career. I've had really great staffs, and I've had my current staff we've been together as a full staff since 1999, which is probably the longest in probably not just the softball world, but probably in any of the worlds. And having loyal staff members, and people ask me often, well, how'd you get them to stay? Well, I've been able to value them and get the university to value what they've done. But that's always been an ongoing. I can tell you how many years I've had to go in and fight to make sure that my softball staff made as much or more than the baseball staff, and so these are things that have, there's always something. But in general, I feel like I've empowered them and given them a huge say in the program, and their investment is equal to mine. And I think having a staff that you can empower and let them run with it, not micromanage them, because people who have that investment are more likely to stay longer and stick it out and be loyal to you. And that has helped me enormously because they help me. They're my other set of eyes. I value their opinion. This isn't my way or the highway. This is, what do you guys think we should do? And I listen to them all before I have to make those decisions. And I think it's been one of the reason we've had the success, and the reason I've had the success that I'm credited with, is because I have such great help, such great staff.
Awesome. Coach Hutch, thank you for your time, and congratulations on 35 years at Michigan and your successful record. And thank you for being a champion for women and Title IX. Appreciate it.
I appreciate the chance to chat today and to get to know you. So good luck with everything.
Conversations from the world of women's sports. This is Wisp Sports Radio.
Thank you to Carol Hutchins for being my guest coach. Follow and comment on social media. Twitter is at Wisp Sports. My Twitter is at Miller12Shannon. My Facebook and Instagram is at Coach Shannon Miller. My website is CoachShannonMiller.com. Check out the drill of the week that I post on Thursdays. You can find links in the show notes for this episode at wisports.com and find more coverage of women's sport. Thanks for supporting women in sport everywhere.